emotions and intentions, to manage sensitive topics with empathy and honesty. Communicating from the soul stirs our hearts, creates a more enriching, profound, and meaningful connection with others. And this level of soulful self expression gives us the power to be more authentic, share our true feelings and values without the interference of the mind. And this inspires heartfelt connection with inner wisdom and guidance. So, how can we deepen our soulful connection with ourselves? How can this enable us to improve, heal, and support our relationships with others? How can we have a better connection with the world around us? Well, our guest today, Stephanie Banks, channels wisdom for global transformation. She's highly sought after as an intuitive channel, mentor, and guide who helps people connect on a soul level. She channels from the perspective of any soul currently on the planet, souls on the other side, purely non physical beings such as spirit guides, as well as trees, animals, and Gaia. As a conscious channel, Stephanie is both the vessel to receive the messages as well as a guide to provide depth and context for the information coming through. And she uses her keen sense of humor, love, and compassion to join her clients in their spiritual experience. Stephanie also mentors clients in discerning their own inner voice, wisdom, enhancing their confidence and self-trust, improving their relationships, clarifying their soul's purpose, and finding their laughter and joy. Stephanie is the author of the bestseller, Joining Joni, Staying Connected to Your Loved One Through Dementia and Beyond. So now I am pleased and honored to welcome Stephanie Banks on our show today, the positive impact of communicating with your child on a soul level. Stephanie, welcome to Love Light.
Hi, Dr. Jean. Thank you for all of that. And thank you for having me here to share with your community. It's an honor. I really look forward to the unfolding of our conversation today.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. And I really love this unique and empowering episode, and I'm sure it will be beneficial to our listeners. But I'd like for you to maybe share with our listeners about how you were inspired on your journey and to do the work that you're doing now.
Absolutely. Well, I started off in my career as a clinician. So I've been a speech language pathologist for over 21 years in medical settings. And quite a while ago, I met a new friend when I relocated to Florida to be closer to my parents. My mother had been diagnosed with a type of dementia that affects younger people. Her symptoms started in her 50s, and my parents needed me close by so I could offer that level of support. When I moved, I met a friend who channeled, and so let me just define what that meant because I had never heard of channeling before, so it was brand new to me. She was able to communicate with souls, any souls that were in bodies right now living on the planet, any souls that were on the other side as ancestors and loved ones, anything, any energy at all, she could channel from the place of love. And so I asked her one day if she could please channel my mother's soul for me. This was while my mother was alive. Our relationship was in a really rough place. Dementia does that, it really pulls at all the typical ways of communicating. They start to break apart, and our verbal communication was not something we were going to be able to rely on much longer. So my friend was kind and generous enough to channel my mother's soul, and I had the opportunity to ask her soul to guide me. What does she need from me? What is our relationship meant to be like? How can I support her better? What is this part of her journey? What's the deeper meaning behind it? And how am I in the way of whatever it is she's come to accomplish as a soul? So these were some of the questions I got to ask through channeling. And these are not questions we get to ask in any other way that I'm aware of. I couldn't sit down with my mom and have these conversations. She wasn't able to process this information. And oftentimes she didn't even know she had dementia. So there was a lot of confusion and a lot of frustration in our interactions. So hearing from my mother's soul through my dear friend was very clarifying for me. And that was the beginning of my channeling journey because I realized if this can change this relationship that I have with my mother, it can have far reaching transformation in all of my relationships. So I took classes and studied for years with mentors and practiced. And now I do this professionally and I teach other people how to channel as well.
Stephanie, that's so beautiful and how it led to a better connection with your mother. Um, is this for the chosen few, or can we all learn how to channel?
We can all learn how to channel. I tell people all the time, there isn't really anything unique about me that makes me a better channel than anyone else. I have just been willing to get out of my own way and to learn how to get out of my own way because we're always in our way. It's a
Yes.
pattern of behavior. And so it's an unlearning process. And then, of course, there are techniques and strategies and practices that assist me with maintaining myself as a clear channel of divine love because you can channel any sort of energy you want. And I choose the highest vibrational, loving, divine energy. So, yeah, anyone can learn. I've seen this time and again in my classes. If you're willing to put in the practice and the work and the devotion and the willing to trust yourself, yes, you can be a very clear channel.
Stephanie, I heard you in a previous interview where you talked about the left and right brain hemisphere.
Mhm.
And can you kind of shed a little bit about the science of that and how it can help us in terms of this soul communication?
Yes, and this is something really important to understand how our brains work. So we have a whole brain and it's comprised of two hemispheres that are connected in the middle. The left part of our brain, the left hemisphere, is for logical thinking, linear thinking, critical thinking, problem solving, and language. The right side of our brain, the right hemisphere, is for our intuition, our creativity, our playfulness, our inclusiveness. And so together, in balance, wonderful. That's how we're meant to be. But we actually live in a culture and a society where the left hemisphere is, I would say, revered quite a
Yes.
bit over the right hemisphere. We put a lot more importance on logical linear thinking and a lot less on our intuition and our inclusivity and our creative side. And so we have an imbalance. We have overdeveloped left hemispheric abilities and functions and underdeveloped right hemispheric abilities and functions. And so we're off. So channeling actually comes through intuition, which is the right hemisphere. And that's knowing that will really facilitate where you direct your attention and your practices so that you can guide yourself into more creative pursuits, into opening to spiritual communication. All of that happens through the right hemisphere, also through the heart, also through what some people call the third eye, the place between the brows, the imagination. All of this is where channeling can come through. So it's not a left brain function, it's a right hemispheric function.
Thank you so much for sharing that because of, educational training. We're taught to be problem solvers, to be logical, to be analytical. And that was kind of how I was trained in my personality. But I really realized the value of intuition, that that's more clear, more gentle, more soft. And, I do rely on that. So thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
Stephanie, I know. Can you just share briefly how can this be used in our connections that make a difference? How do you use it, and how has it made a difference in your relationships?
Yeah, well, I'll go back to the example with my mother. Once I learned what her soul needed and didn't need from me and from our relationship, I had a choice. I could choose the patterns of behavior and interactions that we had been doing for most of my life, which I saw where that was leading us to disconnection. Or I could choose to really heed the requests of her soul and start to make some changes on a subtle level, really, in the way I interacted with her. And I chose the latter because I already knew what I was going to get from the former, and it wasn't working. It was a deeply sad experience to have to know how the rest of her lived experience was going to go. Because as a clinician, I'm very familiar with dementia. But I had this precious time with her, not knowing how much longer she had in body where we could maximize the positive experiences that we had. So one of the things her soul shared with me was that I was actually unknowingly getting in the way of her soul agreements with my father when I would do things like swoop in and try to clean up a miscommunication or a difficult situation or kind of control their dynamic so that I could, in my mind, I was lightening his load, but actually, I was making things more difficult because my father showed up as such an exquisitely devoted and committed soul to my mother that they already had their thing. I was stepping on their toes when I intervened. And so I learned how to give space to that and to not try to step in or manage their dynamic and their behavior with each other. She also shared with me, her soul did, that she was actually here to still have fun and still be honored and appreciated and valued and loved and cherished as much as ever. So that let me celebrate her really
Mm.
more. And I could see how much that would light her up from within. Who doesn't like that, right? And
Yes.
so we would dance more and we would be silly more and we would have conversations that had absolutely no meaning because of the dementia component. And then
Yes.
we would just laugh about it like, oh, who cares? It doesn't matter that you didn't totally understand what I said, and I have no idea what you said because here we are gazing into each other's eyes, smiling at one another, and that's what matters. So we
Mm.
got to be more playful. We got to be in that right hemisphere. I got to join her in her experience with dementia. And that's the last thing that I would say I learned from her soul. She reminded me that when she looks to be distant or dazed or on another planet almost, like I could just see that she wasn't fully present to the conversation or the environment around her, my tendency was to tap her on the shoulder or call her name and re-engage her and reorient her to the conversation. And she said, her soul said to me, that's very disruptive. What I'm doing when I look like I'm spacing out to you is I am traveling. I am visiting with loved ones. I am having my own experience and I am not engaged in whatever your reality is. And that's by design. I do not need to be engaged in what your reality is. Please leave me to mine. And that also was a game changer because then I could stop trying to bring her back into the fold and instead have curiosity and interest in, I wonder what she's experiencing right now. I wonder who she's who she's chatting with on the other side, what she's present to.
That's so significant. We had those similar experiences with my mother before she passed away. And when she would revert to, it's like she was communicating with another loved one. And I would tell family members, give her the space to do that and
Mm,
let her be and don't try to bring her back to the present. Let her be where she is. So thank you so much. That's very empowering for listeners who are dealing with family members with dementia. But now let's come back to our topic here about children. Uh, you know,
yes.
I'm sure there are many listeners out there dealing with children, with a child, teenager who's in the intense transition to adulthood, adult children who may have lost their way, children with special needs. How can we help in terms of, you know, this communication beyond just the verbal, because this may be frustrating, trying to control the situation or to make things happen. Can you give insight on that for relief for our listeners who are having these issues?
Absolutely. And I speak as a mother of three. So I keenly understand this component of parenting. So I feel that the first piece of transforming our relationships and our understanding with our children, it has to come from unlearning. We need to be willing to let go of what we think we know of them. Because within what we think we know, we have superimposed all of our own stuff, our expectations, our own disappointments, our hopes, our wishes, our dreams for them. And they are here as their own soul beings. They are not here for us to, to put them in a particular direction or set them on a particular path. I believe our roles as parents is to do what we can to keep them safe and to move the boulders out of the way so that they have access to the many paths that are before them, and empower and support them in their journeys. And we have no idea what their journeys are really all about. So this is again, like with my mother, where we can join our kids. We need to be asking questions about their experience, believing them. Also trusting our intuition about what we get. Sometimes when my kids were younger and they might say little small non-truths, no, I didn't eat the cookies, or no, I didn't leave the, paper towels soaking
Mhm.
wet, whatever. We have an intuition, of course, and logic that tells us, that's not quite right. I'm pretty sure I know the truth of this. We as parents need to trust our intuitive
Mhm.
sense for things. But what's intuition and what is fear? This
Mhm.
is something we need better discernment around in order to support and soulfully connect with our kids.
That is so beautiful because so often we are get caught up into societal expectations or our own sense of parental control. And thank you for sharing that. It's so spectacular to enable us to learn a new way, a new approach of communicating beyond the verbal level to make our connections more enriching and meaningful. But Stephanie, and for our listeners, we're ready for a brief commercial break. So stay tuned for more on the positive impact of communicating with your child on a soul level with our outstanding guest today, Stephanie Banks. She's a professional, highly sought after intuitive channel mentor guide and the author of the bestseller joining Joni, staying connected to your loved one through dementia and beyond. Stay tuned. We'll return shortly. Welcome back to Love Like Living in the Spirit of Love. And if you're just joining us, we are with our amazing guest, Stephanie Banks, highly sought after intuitive channel, mentor, and guide, author of the bestseller Joining Joni, Staying Connected to Your Loved One Through Dementia and Beyond. On our show today, the positive impact of communicating with your child on a soul level. And Stephanie, before we went on break, you shared the importance of, just allowing our children to be without that control and being able to connect with them in more meaningful and positive ways. Stephanie, my question, how do we know that we're really connecting? And I know you're going to share some strategies or whatever, but How do we really know?
Oh, it's a great question. What I would first say is that it is, as you practice connecting on a soul and spirit level, it is very natural for your left brain to say, this isn't real. You're making this up. You can't prove this. This is invented, to really kind of naysay. So expect that. It's okay. That voice is there to try to keep things on a straight and narrow path. It really doesn't have any place within your soul communication or your intuitive communication with your child or anyone else, but it's okay. That voice you can work alongside it. It has good uses for other tasks. So you can expect that. And what I would say is that just as we know when anything resonates with us, when it feels deeply true, that's usually in the body. Your body will never ever lie. Your body is operated by nature. And so that's if someone tells you a thought or idea and it just feels absolutely off and awful to you, your body will show you that by, feeling like you need to pull away or a constriction or a tightness. Usually I feel that in my heart. If you have someone who you're feeling really drawn to and you love their work in the world and their heart is just calling you, that's a warmth, a moving in, a moving closer, an opening and expanded feeling in the body. So if you can get very clear on your body's yes and no, truth or false senses, then you can start to really trust those instantaneous responses because they will come instantaneously. And as you begin to communicate with your child, let's say on a heart level, which isn't that different from soul. I just want to bring it down to a little bit more simplicity because some people might think it's too hard to do the soul level communication, but they understand what heart communication is. So we'll start there.
Good.
You know your child's heart better than anyone else. And I want to empower parents to trust that. I mean, we've known our children from the moment of their breath. So move into that beautiful space that most of us have been protecting heartily for
Mhm.
our children, and start to have those heart connections. You can do this through the silence of your heart. You can do this through deeper conversations that include open-ended questions with non-judgment. Anytime you go to a deeper communication with your child, it is going to require you to do some work on and within yourself. We can't take combustible relationships like, say, some of the teenage years perhaps, and expect for a teenager that has been withdrawing or not wanting to speak to us to suddenly open up over dinner because we asked a good open-ended question. It doesn't usually work like that. This is a slow building up of a new way of communicating, a new way of trusting. And it starts with you, the parent, being the calm, spacious, trusting, loving body in the room.
Mm.
And that takes work. We don't always come from that space. We have a lot of stressors in our lives. So we're rushed and we're pressured, and our children feel that. So the inner work of meditating, of spending time in nature, of self exploration, examination, of journaling, of therapy, all of these things will present you as the calm body in the room. And that's a safer place for your child to be able to communicate on a heart level, on a soul level, and verbally as well.
So this takes a lot of inner work. I love that you said that because we can't just jump in and start doing something without that inner work. And I really appreciate you, really sharing and talking more about, clearing the old patterns and beliefs to open up the space to receive for clarity, wisdom, and love. And, as you indicated, ways that we can, achieve that meditation, being in the natural world, even what forgiveness, learning
Yeah.
to trust ourselves. Selves, can you really talk more? Because I know our listeners are really want to know how to and strategies. So please just elaborate on those techniques for inner work.
Sure, sure. I'll give a practice that
Thank you.
anyone
Okay.
can, yeah, that anyone can do, and you don't do this in the presence of the person that
Hmm.
you are communicating with. So you'd want to prepare yourself energetically to communicate on a soul level. Like I said, you have to take responsibility for your energetic hygiene, is what I like to call it. So do spend some time going for a walk or doing some sort of vigorous exercise to move energy out of your body. Just 10, 15 minutes of this is enough. You just want to kind of release whatever has attached itself, whatever's pent up, whatever's feeling constricted for you. So some sort of forward moving, active exercise. Then get into a space, if you can, where you'll be undisturbed, even again, just for 10 or 15 minutes. It could be a bathroom. Sometimes that's the only room you can get a little bit of space. So
Yes.
wherever you can, and bring a journal, bring a pen. Some people like to light a candle. Candles are such a beautiful symbol of invoking the presence of spirit or creator or source or angels or whatever it is that you believe in. And connect to your breath. So you'll sit comfortably, you'll slow your breathing to a comfortable pace. You'll make the request that any of your biases and prejudgments be removed, be lifted from you by your spirit team. Again, this can be angels, spirit guides, creator, source, God, love, whatever language you're comfortable with. Ask for yourself to be, for those predetermined and prejudged beliefs to be lifted so that you may be a more open and clear and receiving vessel for whatever it is that your child's soul wants to communicate with you. You breathe into that. I like to do a heart math technique where you imagine that you're breathing in through the front of your heart and exhaling through the back of your heart. You can do that 6, 7, 8 times just to really settle your nervous system and calm your body and open your mind. And then open your eyes and allow for your own soul to illuminate or your heart to illuminate. What is the burning question of the moment that you would like to ask of your child's soul? What is the thing that you would most like to have them respond to? And for some people, this might be, what do you need from me? How can I support you? Um, why are things so, sticky right now? Can you forgive me for such and such? I don't know. Whatever question first comes to you is the question. You can write that down. Take a few more breaths with your eyes closed and invite in your child's soul, their beautiful, perfect soul that is here for their own reasons to experience life here and allow for them to grow in exactly the ways that they are going to grow. And invite them in and ask that question and ask if they would please be so gracious as to offer you a response that will be in the highest service to the relationship. And then let that come through. And you can write it in your journal. Writing is a form of channeling. You can sort of hear it. You can bring it through the heart. Maybe it's not coming in exact words, but there are symbols and images, sort of movies or colors. Whatever comes through is perfect, even if you don't understand it completely. You can build on this. You can recreate this practice multiple times over multiple days and get a little bit more and a little bit more so that the full picture does come into focus. But quite likely, I've seen this time and again when I offer these practices in my classes, you will receive specific guidance or information or insight from your child's soul, letting you know what they need or what they don't need, or how you can be showing up for them that is in service to their soul's evolution here in this lifetime.
Stephanie, I really, really love that practice. Keeping a soul channeling journal. What about that? It can be very
Hmm.
helpful where you can go back and review and look at the progress you've made. That's a good technique, and I love what you shared with us, how to connect and the breathing. And one question I have, I know for me, when I takes things to spirit to get more insight. The answer may not come immediately, but when I quiet my mind and just, let go, it just comes. And I'm like,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you. And I
Yes.
know it's not me. It's like, boom, there it is. Thank you. It may come in a dream. It may come when I wake up, or maybe I'm sitting out in my meditation garden and I'm like, thank you. So it's like I'm not rushing. I'm just kind of patiently waiting.
That's absolutely a perfect thing to highlight because in this practice, sometimes you might feel like you didn't get anything, maybe the connection wasn't there. But sure enough, because you are devoted to raising your frequency, just this practice alone raises your frequency into a more loving vibration. Your next conversation with your child may be the best one you've ever had because you have opened the door for that type of communication to be possible. And your child may not know, oh, mom or dad is locked in the bathroom channeling my soul. We hope that's not what they're, thinking, unless they're really open-minded. But their soul knows. We can feel when someone has benevolence and love and goodwill and kindness and desire for repair with us. On a soul level, we can feel that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be everything spoken out loud clearly. It doesn't have to be that the perfect message comes through as the first time you sit down. Over time, this is a practice over time.
Yes. And when I think about, families out there with children, they may feel guilt-ridden, frustrated, even the shame or worry, the fear, feeling unworthy. And this gives us hope for a better way and a new way.
Yes, and a lot of people have family members or children who have special needs or they're not able
Yes.
to communicate in traditional ways. This was what I did as a speech pathologist, as I was tasked with finding alternative pathways for people to be able to communicate what they needed to communicate. And verbal communication is not the only way. There's many
Mhm.
different ways to communicate. So this is a great tool if you find that you have a child who is struggling with traditional communication. You can tap into this and you can move forward and address their needs from this perspective.
What about family members or a child who's hospitalized or someone in a coma or whatever? Can this be done in those situations?
Absolutely, because the soul is that aspect of us that is eternal. It is present when we're here in the body. It is present when we leave the body. It's this, eternal, expanded, loving essence of us. So no matter what a person's physical state is, we can be attuning to and communicating with their soul.
Mhm. Now, what about a loved one or a child who's passed on, a lot of unfinished business? Maybe parents or loved ones feeling like maybe there were things left unsaid, or they're still hurt or spent in grief as a result of unfinished business or things left unsaid. Any uh, thoughts about that?
Yeah, we get to finish our business whenever we're ready.
Great, that's
Yeah, I
hopeful.
I really do believe that.
Yes.
I had a bit of a rocky sometimes relationship with my mother. And now that she's on the other side, we have the best relationship we've ever had. And a lot of what needed to happen has also, in addition to once I started being able to channel her, once she left her body, our work has become just purely pure love. So we can come to completion even if we didn't get to say everything we wanted to say or do everything we wanted to do while they were in body.
That is very hopeful and gives us a sense of resolve because so many are spent, as I indicated, in guilt. What I should have done, what I could have done. Maybe I
Yeah.
missed the mark. Can you imagine how many out there who's feeling that and daily spent in disappointment and frustration, uh, uh, feeling like I could have done more?
Yes, I can more than imagine it. A lot of the channeled sessions I do are around that exact thing. People who are in grief and holding that sometimes for decades
Yes.
because they don't realize they can actually heal that with that soul that they love.
Beautiful, beautiful. How hopeful and how meaningful. And we're going to continue shortly with more on this just outstanding episode with Stephanie. She is a highly sought after intuitive channel, mentor, guide, author of the bestseller Joining Joni, Staying Connected to Your Loved One Through Dementia and Beyond. On our show today, the positive impact of communicating with your child on a soul level. Stay tuned, we'll return shortly. Welcome back to Love Light Living in the Spirit of Love. And today we are with our spectacular guest, Stephanie Banks, highly sought after intuitive channel, mentor, guide, author of the bestseller Joining Joni, Staying Connected to Your Loved One Through Dementia and Beyond. On our show today, the positive impact of communicating with your child on a soul level. So, Stephanie, before we went on break, we were talking about how parents may be guilt-ridden over things left unsaid, even if their child has passed away, or the difficulty and frustration communicating. How can parents, caregivers, grandparents, loved one, whatever, deal with this grief or frustration? What are your thoughts about this to let go and release and move to a new way of communicating.
Yeah. Well, once our loved one is no longer in body, it really does open up a whole world of possibilities. And that's what I think our culture does not teach us, and depending on the religion as well, that these are things that aren't discussed, or they're even discounted. So what I am believing, and what has been my experience as a professional channel, is that our loved ones, their essence, their soul, always wants to be in connection and communication with us.
Hmm.
They are not elsewhere, they are everywhere. So we can have ongoing conversations with them. We can have interactions with them. We can see them. I see a lot of my loved ones in the natural world. My mother has been sending a red male cardinal to my son's bedroom window every day for 11
Hmm.
years since
Hmm.
she passed.
My goodness.
And I have looked up several times, what is the lifespan of a cardinal? Because I've thought it's impossible it's the same one. I don't know that it's the same one, but still, every day since she passed, this cardinal comes to the same place and peeks in at us.
Yes.
And that was my mother's favorite bird. So
What a
what
gift.
I find, yes, what I find is that I work with a lot of people who are holding a tremendous amount of sadness and grief and guilt about not being able to have been physically present for their loved one in, say, their last moments. And for a variety of reasons, this happens. I mean, sometimes you're on an airplane on your way there and they pass. Sometimes you step out of the room after many, many hours and many days of holding vigil just to, go to the bathroom, and that's the moment that they pass. So, what I have learned from Souls on the Other Side is that they do not hold a grudge for somebody's for them not being present physically. We can let go of that guilt and that judgment that we have on ourselves, because what they most care about, our beloved ancestors and loved ones on the other side, is that we stay communicating with them and in connection. They're there now as protectors for us. They are there to support us. They are there to lead and illuminate and guide us in so many different ways. And when we hold that grief and that sometimes it's self-loathing and self-judgment and self-hatred about not having been at a certain place at a certain time, it gets in the way. It's like noise, it's static that we can't hear or connect to them with. Um, and I know for myself, I was able to be at my mother's side when she took her last breath. And I had full intention of being there at my father's side for his. And for reasons really kind of outside of my control, that did not happen. I was not there for his last breath. And I could hear him telling me, it's okay. I do not need for you to be right here for me to release. And I had whispered to him while he was still in body, if you go when you need to go. Sometimes people don't realize that we can grant this freedom to our loved ones, as hard as it is, and as much as we do not want them to leave the body. When we give permission to them, I'm going to be here. We're going to still be connected. I'm going to be finding you and listening for you and looking for you in all these different places. You can go when you are ready. You can go when you are called. These are very powerful words for our precious ones to hear, and for our own hearts to be able to speak.
Mm. Stephanie, that's so profound because we place so much emphasis on the physical. And as you were talking, I was reflecting back on my grandmother when she raised me, and before she passed away, I got this urge to go to the hospital. And when I went into a room, it was just like as the good old days. We were talking,
Mm.
communicating. It was almost the last time. And uh, she passed like the next day. And the doctors, when I told them what I experienced, and even family members, he said, that's not impossible. She was unconscious. but I know what happened,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
I understand that. And of course, I get white feathers, I get coins, you know,
Yes.
in my path, and I'm like, yes, she's there, So, hey, that was so profound. So thanks for
And
sharing this.
that does happen, Dr. Jean.
Hmm.
People do rally. That's what it's called.
What do you
They
call it?
have this it's called rallying.
Oh,
When you are very, very near the end of your life, some people get this wave of energy. They get energized. They will become alert. They will become more themselves, even if they've been non-responsive for a long period of time. This can happen. It's not uncommon. It actually happened
hmm.
with my mother as well. After many days of no interaction, she was sitting up, she was taking some bites of food, she was interacting as much as she could with my dad. It blew my mind and very much confused me because within the next day or two, she did transition. But that's when I learned that's a real thing. So don't believe anyone who tells you that's not possible. Of
Yeah, you're
course.
hallucinating.
Yeah, no, no. We're always told such nonsense things like that, but trust yourself. That's what I want everybody to leave with. Trust yourself
Mm,
and build that trust within yourself because you are your own best everything. Advocate, friend, compassionate partner, all of this. Trust yourself.
very great to share that because so frequently we have a lot of self-doubt. And even when,
Mhm.
our intuitive hits are there, we ignore them or we don't pay attention to it. We disregard it. So learning to trust ourselves, that's so profound. And Stephanie, the soul communication and channeling can be used. I heard you before talk about in partnerships, friendships, parents, children, making decisions about jobs, choosing partners. Can you elaborate a little bit about that in terms of how it can be used in our everyday life?
Yes, isn't that so great?
Yes, I mean,
We
it
are
makes life so easy.
Yes, we could have it so much easier than what we're making it as we slog away in our left hemispheres, right? Oh
Yes,
gosh. So we have
literally.
literally, we have a whole team. We have an energetic, etheric team devoted to our well-being, our protection, our joy, our growth, our expansion. This team it includes your spirit guides, some of whom come with you in all of your lifetimes, some of whom, just in certain ones. We have our ancestors and loved ones on the other side who are also devoted to our well being, protection, and joy, and all the beautiful things we're here to experience, and also the hard things, right? We do our growth through the hardships, not just through everything being hunky dory. Um, and we can channel our animals, our companion animals. I channel trees. The trees are talking to
Mm,
me all the time.
wow.
Nature, yes, nature, Mother Earth, Gaia, she will speak to us and through us. So wherever you feel your connection, lean in there. Go in that direction. I know, Dr. Jean, for you and I, we love nature and
Oh,
our
I love
gardens.
it.
Yes, our gardens are our place of replenishment. And I dare say that is a common thing for every human. You might not realize that's part of you yet, but we are nature. It's not us and then there's nature. We are nature. And so coming back to the interconnectivity of all life is very, very soulful and a very useful practice to have to get outside and notice and appreciate and listen. Listen for the messages. Listen, watch for, like you said, the feathers and the animal messengers. When you see an animal that crosses your path, look up. You can just do a Google search for what is the spirit animal of raccoon? What does it
Mhm.
mean? And it will give you all these cool characteristics of raccoon and how that animal is giving you some insights about, oh, these might be things to pay attention to in your day or this week, or aspects of your character that you might want to pay attention to and develop. It's endless. We can take channeling into all aspects and directions of our lives, our relationships. There is no limit to it.
And I think we have to pay attention and not take things for granted. I have my book on these totems. And whenever I'm
Yes.
visited by a sparrow that literally lives in my build nests all around my home, it's like, okay, what does this mean? So I don't take it for granted. And I think, can you share that there is a soul in everything, right?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, and I love that sparrow is
Oh,
one of
yes.
your spirit animals. Yes. How beautiful. What do you remember offhand what the characteristics are of that particular bird?
Well, it's really about relationships, productivity.
Mm,
Because I observe them building their nests with love, and
yeah.
I see them building their nests, all over, and it's like, okay, it's this soulful connection, relationships, productivity, health.
Probably resourcefulness too, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
resourcefulness is
Yeah, that's
so
you.
enlightening.
That's definitely you. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so paying attention. We need to wake up. We
Mm,
need to we are in, I pray, the time of the great awakening. It does require us to unlearn and to really question what we've been told or have taken on as beliefs that just are no longer true, no longer resonant, maybe never were true. And
indeed.
our true nature is in nature. So do that first. If you want a first step, it is to become, connected, more deeply connected to nature, the outdoor world. If it's too cold, bring the outdoor world inside. Start growing some plants, start tending to some soil, start doing research on the brilliance of trees and plants and soil, and on that mycelial network that trees communicate with each other with to provide each other with sugars and nourish each other with carbon when another tree is sick. You'll blow your
My
mind at what is going on in the natural world that we
Mhm.
completely have disconnected from. So let's come back to that because I believe that's where our salvation is as humans.
Indeed.
We cannot protect what we don't love, and we need to love nature.
Indeed. So, Stephanie, how can listeners connect with you to learn more about your services and resources before we close out?
Sure. So the website is soulinsight.com. And if your listeners would like a couple free gifts, a meditation that will help you connect to your own soul, and a PDF for questions that your soul wants to ask you, you can go to soulinsight/free.com.
Mm. Stephanie, I cannot thank you enough for this soul stirring episode. And thank you so much for being here today. You've really given us a new and unique approach to stimulate soulful connections, to build soulful relationships with ourselves, and foster enriching connections with others. You have given us so much hope, how we can expand beyond verbal communication, especially in difficult situations. Thank you so much. So, listeners, share our show with others. We invite you to connect with Stephanie to go deeper and learn more. This is Dr. Jean Marie, your Love Light host, coming to you from Voice America. And until we meet again, remember, an empowered self is a loving self. And keep your love light shining. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you, Stephanie, for being on Love Light today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jean.